Hello. I don't know what Jari said, but I'm the ECD of Ingo in Stockholm, and we are grey in Stockholm. And it's an honor for me to be here, and I'm very happy to be invited to this event. I like Finland a lot. I have friends here, not at least at Grey. I've also worked here, and we did all the post-production for a big film just recently for a client called Dalok with a Swedish post-production company. I want to start with a question. Did anyone here in this room call a Swede about a little bit less than a year ago? Yeah, well, there are a few. That's great. Thank you very much for that. You actually helped to make one of the biggest campaigns in the world. The Swedish number is by far one of the most successful campaigns that my country has done, and it spread an unbelievable amount of positive press about Sweden and Swedish value around the globe. It's also, as far as I can tell, one of the biggest campaigns in the world. It's bigger than, I don't know if you remember the Best Job in the World, a campaign a few years ago. It's bigger than that. It's bigger than Mac Whopper campaign. That was a big campaign this year. And it's one of the biggest winning campaign in Cannes this year. Here are, wait. No. Sorry about that. Many clickers here. Here are some numbers. During a period of a little bit less than 3 months, almost 190,000 calls came in. And there were a staggering 9.2 billion media impressions, which is good, I think, because there is only 7.2 billion people on the planet. And the longest calls was more than 5 hours. 5 hours and 40 minutes. It came from the US. More than 32,000 people enlisted to be ambassadors and downloaded the app. And the number of calling countries were 186, and I think there are 194 countries on the planet. Here are the countries that didn't call in. As you can see, not many calls coming in from North Korea. And for those of you who have no idea what this campaign is about, here is a very short explanation of it. So for those of you who don't know anything about this campaign, here's a short explanation.
Sweden is celebrating 250 years of free speech with a unique twist. Their tourism board opened up a phone hotline to connect you with a random Swede.
That's it in a nutshell. I couldn't have said it better myself. So to tell this story, I need to take you back to this date. It's the 14th of May, 2014. And it was the day when we first presented this idea to the client. The client was a government organization called Visit Sweden, and they'd given us a brief about Swedish food. They wanted to promote Swedish food habits around the world. And so we had a full creative force working on this brief, and on the presentation day, we were all gathered in one big room. And all the creatives, the planners, and a few people from the clients were there, and they were all presenting one after the other. And one idea was completely off brief, and nothing to do with Swedish food, or very little to do with Swedish food. And it was this idea. It was then called Call Sweden, and everybody felt immediately that this was it. This was a great idea. So, and when I thought about it, it made totally sense to me. Sweden, as a country, we don't have any big landmarks like the Eiffel Tower or Statue of Liberty and the Tower of Pisa and things like that. Sweden is not a common subject for international press to write about. And we don't have a big budget so that we can advertise globally about our country. And it's not a natural holiday choice. But Sweden has its people, and we are normally proud about our country. And especially when we are abroad, we like to speak to foreign people brag about Swedish lifestyle and Swedish values and things like that. And we also like to speak English. So that's probably one of the reasons why we do it. And on top of this, we have a very long tradition of freedom of speech. So we decided to develop this idea further, and we had endless meetings with the clients about this, and we scrutinized everything down to the smallest grain, and we made risk analysis, and the client was very, very thorough about this. Wanted answers of everything. What if this happened? And how do we answer? And how do we react if this happened? And so on and so on. And we made PR plans, global PR plans. How can we roll out this to the world? And we looked into the tech development. How can we technically make this idea come alive? And Visit Sweden is a big organization. They are everywhere in the world. And so they wanted to sell this idea to their organization. So 1.5 years before the launch, we made this film. And this is just a short part of the film.
This Sweden?
Hello. A complete lie in order to sell the idea. But as you saw there, we said in this film 32,000 Swedish people signed up, and it's actually what happened. 32 people, Swedish people, 1,000 did sign up. We also said that we had the Prime Minister answering telephone calls, and actually he did, and I will come to that later. So we set a launch date. We had endless meetings, big meetings. They became bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people were involved, and everything needed to be scrutinized, so, like I said. And then, so we set a launch date to February 2015. So it's more than a year after we presented the idea the first time. And it was then moved to January, because of technical reasons, to January 2016. And I was a very, very happy man, because we were going live with what I thought was a great campaign. And then I got an email. I blanked out the names here, so I made it anonymous. But it is from the client, saying, we are very, very sorry, but our situation has changed, and we can no longer go ahead and make the campaign. So we put in hundreds of hours of this, and we practically finished everything. We have built one of the world's largest cloud-based switchboards systems. And we had the app almost ready, and the website, and we started the work with the launch film and so on, and they just pulled the plug. But our belief in this campaign was so strong, so we didn't just wanted to give up and walk away from it. And I've been working with this advertising for more than 25 years, and here I saw that I actually could do something different, that I can go in and do something for my country. So I didn't just want to bin the campaign. So we started to look for alternative clients. And we found the Swedish Tourist Organization. They are a semi-government organization, and they've been around since 1888, and their objective is to make people more curious about Sweden as a country. And they had one big advantage. They had a members base of more than 250,000 members that we thought could help us answering the phones. So I started to chase their general secretary. He's not a CEO. He's like in the UN, they have a general secretary, and the Swedish Tourist Organization have a general secretary. So, and I got a hold of him, finally. He was on a train, and I spoke to him on a very bad phone line, mobile phone line. And for some reason, I managed to convince him to come into the agency the next day. And he did, and he brought his PR person. And less than a week after, he said, okay, we do it. I'll probably get some shit for it, but let's go ahead and do it. So I was, again, a very, very happy man. We were all in production. Then this, the other worst day of my life. I got a phone call from a friend who works in London, and he was judging one show in New York, and he said, "Hey Björn, I'm judging one show in New York, and I'm looking at a campaign here. It's called Call Brussels, and I was thinking about the campaign that you have, that it's called Call Sweden." It was a Sunday evening, and I was watching TV. I remember this clearly because it was like being struck by lightning or something. And we had a few weeks to our launch. So I looked into their idea, and I could see some similarities, but I also saw some fundamental differences that perhaps didn't come up as clearly in our presentation of our idea. They put up 3 telephones on 3 billboards in the central area of Brussels, and if you walked by and the phone rang, you could pick it up. And then you could talk about whatever. So when we looked into it, it made us reevaluate our idea, and it actually made our idea much clearer and much better. The first thing we did was to change the name. There could not be 2 campaigns with similar names out there. So we changed the name to the Swedish number. And today I'm very, very happy that we did, because I think it's a better name. It more focused on what the idea is all about, a country with a telephone number. And that is the uniqueness of the Swedish number. And then we got lucky, pure luck, because somebody in the agencies came to me and said, "Hey, I just read this article about that this year is 250 years ago since Sweden abolished censorship." And we thought that's great. We always thought about the freedom of speech and so on, and there are not many countries in the world who can make a campaign like that, but we never made it into the hero of the campaign. But now we did. So we made it a central part of everything around the campaign. And the reason, the why does this campaign exist, became super clear. And this actually made it a lot better. So this is when we launched, 6th of April. Remember, it was May 2014. This is almost 2 years later. And we launched in the biggest TV show in Sweden. The General Secretary of Swedish Tourist Association was there in the sofa of Good Morning Sweden, and he explained the idea. And I had no idea at this stage if this idea would fly or not. And in my darkest moments before the launch, I was thinking to myself that, why did we go ahead with this project? It will never work. It's impossible. Nobody will phone in, and nobody will answer the phone. It had 2 critical factors. One is, could we get enough Swedish people to enlist to download the app and help answer the phone? And could we get the whole world to call in? And we had no media money. So on paper, it's a mission impossible. So we were thinking about it, and I mean, I would have been happy with just a few hundred calls or something like that, or maybe 1,000. And worst case scenario, we were calculating that, well, the agency people could answer the phone. If we get this many calls, then we can answer the phone in the agency, and we can get some help with some friends and families and so on. But then a miracle happened.
This is Jess. Sweden has just become the first country in the world to have its own phone number.
My name's Michael Holmes. I'm calling from New York. Just call a random New Yorker.
And apparently you're connected to a random Swede.
Now you can talk to a random Swede.
However, if you call, you'll be connected to a random...
कनेक्ट हो गई आपको बता दें.
Hey, how's it going, bros? My name's Pip. So today, I'm gonna call a Swede.
It's a nice way to connect with the world in a new way.
But for those who'd like to get to know the country a little better, well, there's something new.
ให้ใครก็ได้ทั่วโลกนะคะสามารถโทรเข้าไปคุยกับชาวสวีเดนเพื่อ
So you get free healthcare. Like here in Sweden.
Wait a minute.
电话号码各位记好了，现在拿手机啊，就是4677。
It's about the darkness.
Well, it involves heavy drinking. No.
На звонки простых граждан ответил глава правительства Швеции Стефан Лёвен. Скандинавской страны.
250th anniversary of abolishing censorship from anywhere in the world on the country's new hotline.
但如果接电话的人说自己是瑞典首相，您会相信吗？
本月6号，瑞典旅游协会启动一项名为
All right.
Hi, everybody.
All right.
So, boom. Just a few hours after the General Secretary was sitting in the morning sofa, the phones started ringing. And since there were hardly any ambassadors enlisted, because the idea was just out there, it was the agency people who had to answer the phone. And there were media calling in from all over the world. And we were all being interviewed on live TV shows and things like that. And it just became crazy. And so, and I was on a job in Milan when all this happened, and suddenly a lot of calls were coming in from Turkey, and I was thinking to myself, wow, this actually can work. And I was amazed, and I was starting to relax, and you're always amazed when advertising works, aren't you? So I started to relax, and then somebody said, the number is up on a porn site in Turkey. And it hit me like a freight train right in the middle of the face. I never thought about that before. But I thought to myself then, of course the number is going to be used as a sex line, where people calling in from abroad and trying to speak to Swedish women. And of course, that's what it's going to be used for. And I thought, I must be an idiot, not thinking about this before. And then I became convinced this is going to be the world news, Sweden's new sex hotline. And I was responsible. I was the guy behind it. I've disgraced my whole country. So I just wanted to run off into the streets of Milan and hide in a hole somewhere and never come up. So, but I opened up the app in my phone and I took a few calls from Turkey, and they were all very, very nice. I spoke to a man from who said that in a few weeks I'm going to Stockholm. I'm going to bring my children. Do you have any suggestions what we should do? And I gave him a few tips. So the number was used for the purpose as we thought from the beginning. And then after that, I took maybe 30 to 40 calls throughout the weeks, and all of the calls were very super nice. And I spoke to people from all over the globe, and we spoke about everything from Swedish meatballs to restaurants in Stockholm to skiing in the north of Sweden and Swedish music and so on. And then after a while, the conversations became more general, so we spoke about like Game of Thrones and football and things like that. But generally, super nice. All the calls started out the same way. There were two very shy people. Say, hello, hello, who are you? Well, I'm this, who are you? What do you do? And so it was like very, very hesitant in the beginning, but then it took like 60 seconds or so, and then it all loosened up, and then it was like you've been friends for a long time. Of course, there were rotten apples in this. There's always rotten apples. And of course, there were people who misused the number, but that was a decision that we took very, very early on. Not to put censorship on this, not to try to educate people in what to say about Sweden and so on. People should be able to give their honest opinion about our country. And I think that's the beauty of the idea. That's one of the reasons why this became a successful campaign. Like I said in the beginning, we had 190,000 calls coming in, only 22 out of those 190,000 were reported. And none of those were serious enough to take to the police. So 99.9% were really nice, like this one.
Is about migration. How do Swedish people feel about migrants?
It's a difficult question. We have many children coming, and someone have to take care of them. They have a very bad life. Every country in the Western Europe, I think, we have to help them.
I have another one for you. What do you think is Sweden's best?
So it really warms my heart to hear things like this. And that was a very common question about migration. I got it several times, and I knew other people also got it. So the number was used exactly the way we thought from the beginning, and it was really nice. The next guy we thought, we sort of had a hunch that he had something nice to say about Sweden.
You will soon be connected to a random Swede somewhere in Sweden.
Hello, this is Sweden. I'm the Swedish Prime Minister, Stefan Löfven.
Hi.
Hi, who are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the U.S.
From the U.S.? I'm going to the U.S. in May.
What? Hello?
Yes, hello. I'm Stefan Löfven. I'm the Swedish Prime Minister. Welcome, and I'm glad that you called Sweden.
Is this an actual call?
Wait, how do I know you're really the Swedish Prime Minister?
Well, I believe you have to trust me. And where are you calling from, my friend?
I'm calling from Cyprus.
From Hong Kong?
From India.
Calling from Munich.
Where are you coming to the U.S.?
I'm going to Washington in May on a meeting with the President Barack Obama.
Cool. And you are? I'm Jonathan, by the way.
Yeah. And I'm Stefan. I'm the Prime Minister of Sweden.
What? Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Sweden?
Yes.
Whoa!
Yes. Have you been to Sweden ever? Or Europe? Norway is also a very nice country. Yes. So you should go here. You know the nature is fabulous here. We're nice people. We have great art and great music. So you should come here.
I know. All right. It was amazing talking to you, sir. It was a pleasure and an honor also.
Nice to talk to you too. Okay. Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you. All right.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Hello there. I work with this project, and you have just spoken to the Swedish Prime Minister. As you might realize. Yes, it is the truth. Would it be okay for you? You're laughing very, very nice.
So we launched this film about 10 days after the big launch, and at that time the attention from media was starting to go down, and then we put out this film, and boom, it made a new trip around the globe in news shows and in other programs and so on. So we decided quite early that this would be a campaign and not something that will go on forever, because we wanted it to be shut down when it still had fame and glory and not slowly have a slow death and slowly die. So we had the date set to 6th of June, which it is the Swedish National Day. When we approached the day, there was still quite a lot of number of calls coming in. And so we decided to postpone it. So we postponed it for up until midsummer, the 25th of June, which also happened to be the Cannes week. So all the judges are sitting down there judging Cannes, and so they could actually try the number live and see if it worked. And we were actually monitoring the calls coming in. There were quite a few calls coming in from France at that time. So why did the number become successful? First of all, the idea is very media friendly. It's so easy for mainstream media to make the phone call, speak to a Swedish person, and then put it up in live broadcast. And there is an ongoing fight going on thousands and thousands of TV stations and radio stations for content. They have to provide content every day. Every day they have to have new. It has to be new every day. And this was a very, very simple way for them to create unique content for their station. For every Swedish person being called up, they had their own unique view of Sweden as a country. And secondly, it's a media-neutral idea. And that's a way where we try to work more and more, coming up with the overall idea that it's not connected to a special media. We try to avoid briefs that says make a film or make a outdoor campaign or something like that. We try to focus on coming up with a big idea that is completely not attached to any channels or any media. And this is an example of that. And what happens is that if you come up with a good idea here, then it's easy to put it everywhere you want to put it. And it becomes a good TV, like you saw Stefan Löfven here. It becomes good when you put it into print, and so on and so on. There were several examples of this in Cannes Lions this year, several campaigns based on the same thing. There was a big American campaign called Opt Outside. If you haven't seen it, I can recommend you to go in and look it up on YouTube. There was a campaign from New Zealand called Brutrulium, which is also based on the same thing. And there was another campaign from Ingo in Cannes this year too, which also have the same mechanics behind it. And that is for Lidl. We do Lidl work in Sweden as well. And it was this campaign.
Since 1909, the Nobel Prize has been awarded in the Grand City Hall of Stockholm. Every year on the 10th of December, millions of people watch the live broadcast on television. It's one of the most extravagant dinners in the world. And unless you're the king or the queen or have an IQ over 200, you're unlikely to ever get an invitation. But the most famous thing about this evening is the menu.
Det är typ det största man kan göra. En av de största middagarna i världen.
Last year, a heartbeat away, on the very same night, in the very same second, the doors to another banquet opened. Le Bon. Not for royalties, for the people. Le Bon mirrored every little detail of the noble banquet. The event was even broadcasted live in the parallel TV channel.
Nu står vi här live på Le Bon-banketten.
For the first time ever, ordinary Swedes were able to get a full noble banquet experience. And for the first time ever, one of the world's finest menus were made with ingredients from Lidl, the discount store. So did Lidl steal the show? They would like to think. They just made it bigger. And once and for all proved that their low-priced food lives up to the very highest of standards.
So when you get most of this right, that I've talked about, this might happen. The ranking list of Cannes Lions this summer. The Swedish number won in total 13 Lions, including the Titanium and the Grand Prix. Lidl won 7 Lions, and it puts us on this list. The top one, Alma BBDO, there are maybe 700 people, 800 people. Grey New York is 1,400 people in that agency. And Ingo Stockholm, we are 50 people. So, and this is maybe my biggest learning from all this, is that you don't need to have a huge agency in order to do great work. You don't need to have work with the coolest brands like Nike and Coca-Cola. You don't need the super big budgets in order to make good work. And in order to be among the best in the world. So with that, I will leave you with some words from a very close and now dear friend of mine.
And during my visit to Stockholm, and to Americans who cannot visit themselves, don't worry. I understand that Sweden has a phone number where you can call a Swede and learn about all things Swedish.
You will soon be connected to a random Swede somewhere in Sweden.
God morgon, this is Sweden.
One thing I wanted to ask you was about the darkness.
Well, it involves heavy drinking.
Yeah, Jon Snow is dead.
How's King Carl and Queen Sylvia doing?
They're doing fine, I think.
Sweden is celebrating 250 years of free speech with a unique twist.
记好了，现在拿手机啊，就是46。
Sweden has just become the first country in the world to have its own phone number.
Hello?
Have you ever been to Sweden?
No.
Hi. Hello.
What's the weirdest question you've been asked so far?
If we have polar bears.
Is there an IKEA on every corner?
No, although we have quite a lot of IKEA.
Is this representative of Sweden?
I am not. I hate Sweden. Let's just connect on Facebook.
What do you hope it achieves?
Let people know Sweden is a good place to stay.
Stefan Löfven.
Hello, this is Sweden. I'm the Swedish Prime Minister, Stefan Löfven.
Wait, how do I know you're really the Swedish Prime Minister?
Well, I believe you have to trust me.
It's very windy. I have a parachute.
What?
What do they call it?
An umbrella.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, time for questions. Such an outstanding presentation. Yes.
Is there anybody who wants to start with the questions?
You don't need to call Sweden, you can ask Sweden right now.
I can ask the first one. It's like, if selling this kind of ideas, both the little case, the Le Bon and the Call Sweden, it's not always fun and it's not always rewarding. So what was the easiest part?
I'd say there is no easy part. I'd say that in all the campaigns that we have made throughout the years, is the campaigns where we put the most work behind them and worked the hardest that became the most successful. And there are no shortcuts to making great communication. That's just the way it is. You have to work really hard. I tell my creatives that all the time. I mean, making great ads, making great communication is very, very hard work. It's very easy to be satisfied with something that you feel is good enough. But and then taking that extra mile, it's hard. So I'd say, like you said, like I showed here, it took 2 years to actually make the Swedish number come through. It wasn't very easy.
One of the things which I have been discussing with you is, like, in campaigns, we as an agency and maybe also our clients forgot to think about what's the mutual value you create with the audience. Isn't it so that you have the focus, at least in these cases, it's in the central of the idea?
Yes, yeah. We always ask ourselves what's in it for the client, for our clients that we work with, but also what's in it for our clients' clients. Why should they interact with the campaign? And I think that's essential now in these days when consumers, they choose not to see, they can not see communication, and they can just do it by a click on their computer. So you have to make campaigns, you have to make ideas where they want to participate, and they get something from it.
The microphone, yeah.
Hi, Björn. I'm interested in one particular call, actually. How did the call with Visit Sweden go after this campaign? Because they must have called them afterwards.
Yeah, I think from what I heard, a lot of things were going on in their organization after this. And I think they realized that they made a bad call.
I have one question here that because you started with the brainstorm where there was some ideas presented, and then this was the out-of-the-box idea of the total thing. So what had happened for the promoting Swedish food ideas?
Well, none of them was as close to this one, so nothing happened to those. No, we didn't continue working on that brief. We put all focus on the Swedish number.
That's good. Any more from the audience? I think it's time for a big round of applause for Björn. Thank you very much. No niin.